Hello, welcome back to the Unleash Your Inner Healer Summit. I'm your host, Dr. Robin Futoran, and the intention of the Unleash Your Inner Healer Summit is to bring new tools in health, longevity, and happiness. And our topic today is heart math, because our expert is none other than scientist, researcher, psychophysiologist, and internationally renowned Dr. Roland McCraty. So thank you, Dr. McCraty, for being here.
Oh, it's great, Robin. Thank you for including me.
Absolutely. I'm going to tell viewers a little bit about you. So Dr. McCraty, a psychophysiologist, is Director of Research at the HeartMath Institute. As a creator of the Global Coherence Initiative and Global Coherence Monitoring System, his research includes the physiology of emotion, heart-brain communication, and the global interconnectivity between people and the Earth's energetic systems. Findings from his research have been applied to the development of tools and technology to optimize individual and organizational health, performance, and quality of life. Dr. McCraty has acted as a principal investigator in numerous studies partnered with universities internationally, examining the effects of emotions on heart-brain interactions and on the cardiovascular, hormonal, and immune system function. He's been featured in a number of documentary films, including The Truth, I Am, The Power of the Heart, and The Living Matrix, among many others. He's been interviewed on numerous news shows and talk shows. He's published a large body of scientific papers, been featured in journals, and he leads workshops and retreats at the HeartMath Institute. So thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
Is there anything else you want to tell us about yourself? Or
that's too much already.
Okay. So, I love the mission statement of the HeartMath Institute, helping to activate the heart of humanity. I mean, that's so beautiful. And not only are you working towards connecting people with the energy of their own heart, but to the hearts of all the others on the planet. You want to tell us more about that connection and the work at the Institute?
Okay, well, that's a pretty good summary. Back up a little bit and say that our research and then our activity in the world, our applied research, really focuses in three main areas: what we call personal coherence, social coherence, and then global coherence. And then of course those three interrelate with each other. But our past work over the last probably close to 27, 28 years has really been more focused on personal coherence, really understanding the physiology, as you said, of emotions, and which has a lot to do with how the heart and brain are communicating, and the quality of the signals the heart sends to the brain. And then in more recent years, moved more into the social and global coherence work. But I don't want to skip past the core work of the last 25 years, because that's it all starts with our personal self-regulation, and especially in the context of the theme of the summit. I think that's a really important part. And just to give a very, very, very brief, I mean, we could spend a whole interview on just any one of those topics.
Sure.
What a lot of our original work back, if I go back to the early 90s, uncovered was that the heart is the most reflective, the activity of the heart, and what we call the heart rhythm of emotional states. Mm-hmm. And we focused a lot on the self-regulation, or how do we self-regulate our emotions, because that is what drives the social and the global. It really starts with us, right? We have to, I mean, one of the things that we identified early on in our work is that it's really failures of self-regulation that underlie almost all health problems and the problems we have in society.
Okay. Yeah.
You might have to think about that a little bit, but I think most people, when they really understand that, would agree with that. Mm-hmm. So the early work, there's a whole chain of discoveries, but one of the earlier ones is we started looking at positive emotions long before positive psychology. I mean, years before that movement came on. You know, looking at things like what is the physiology of when we're really experiencing heartfelt feelings of appreciation, compassion, compassionate latitude, kindness, these types of things. Mm-hmm. And what, as well as stressful emotions. And what that led to was understanding that when we're really feeling these regenerative emotions, that the heart literally shifts into a different rhythmic pattern. And that the heart rhythm became the most, or still is the most reflective of emotional state, more so than brain waves and all the other types of things, of course, that we look at here in the lab. And that was a pretty key discovery early on. So following that data, what a lot of people don't know is that our heart rate, everybody knows what heart rate is, right? How many times does the heart beat in a minute? But in reality, our heart rate changes with each and every heartbeat. So if you look at the time between each consecutive pair of heartbeats, that's called heart rate variability. And that's a whole segment just on that and the importance of that. But without that beat-to-beat variability, there would be no heart rhythm. Mm-hmm. And so how much of that variability we have is very important for measuring health and resilience and so on. But at a deeper level, you can look at the pattern of the rhythm, not just how much of it we have. And that's what's reflective of emotional states. Mm-hmm. And in a very simple way of saying it, when we're feeling things like frustration or anger, anxiety, these overwhelm, these types of feelings, the rhythmic pattern of the heart is very chaotic. And that reflects the dynamics going on in our nervous system and the communication going on between the heart and brain. Whereas when we have these heartfelt feelings of things like appreciation and gratitude and kindness and so on, the heart rhythm literally shifts into a very different mode that we now call coherence. It's a very distinct rhythmic pattern that lets us know that the activity in our nervous system is much more literally synchronized, and it's a much more efficient and healthful state. So then we were able to develop a number of techniques that make up the HeartMath system, a part of the HeartMath system, that allow us to shift into that coherent state at will, right? And especially when we're in a stressful situation or we need to really maintain our composure. So a lot of people are really into HeartMath or into sports, who want to perform at their best, or law enforcement, where people need to maintain your composure in very stressful, high-stress situations, these types of things, as well as just regular people wanting to manage stress.
Right.
Now,
is that what you call the physiology of emotion?
Well, that's part of it, yes.
Yeah.
Because emotions is that's a whole interview right there. What's an emotion and what's the physiology of it? Because it's much more complex than most people would appreciate what emotions really are, including, I'll say, our energetic systems as well, not just the physiology that we can put under a microscope, right, and measure. Where was I going with that? Lost track of my own thoughts. Anyway, so being able to, we then developed technology that allow people to see their HRV or their heart rhythms in real time, that facilitate people learning these skills to better self-regulate and maintain their composure and perform at their best and feel better.
Right.
And it's so I've mentioned emotions a couple of times, and I think that's really an important part of the theme of your summit, because it's emotions that drive physiology far more than thoughts. Right. So I think it was a lot of us did. I went through the positive thinking stuff back in the 70s, and got some benefit out of it, but it's really without emotional management, we're missing the boat. Because of course, you can measure some changes in physiology due to thinking and thoughts, but very little really. But once you feel something, you have a lot of profound changes in our physiology. Right. The activity in our nervous system, our hormonal system, blood pressure, all these things rapidly change quite largely and dynamically in response to emotions, but very little in thought. So I think that's an important understanding. A lot of people are concerned about stress and how stress. We now know that so many studies show that stress has negative impacts on health. In fact, 90% of doctors of the visit to a doctor's office for a primary care physician, 90% is stress related.
Wow.
And if we look under the hood of stress, well, stress is always an emotion.
Yeah.
Feeling, right? It's the anxieties, the frustrations, the feeling we don't have enough time, on and on. It's always an emotional response. It's not the event in the world, it's how we feel about it.
Mm-hmm.
So not that we're going to change all the things out there in the world. So we like to say, you're stressing me out, but what are we really saying? You're pissing me off, or, something's, causing an emotional reaction.
Right.
A lot of our past work and tools and techniques focus on how do we better self-regulate and manage our emotional diet.
Yep.
And people have much greater control over that than they often believe. They just haven't been taught how.
Right.
So a lot of simple techniques are about that.
Yeah.
And then, so that's now evolved more into our last few years of research on the social dimension.
Okay.
Of course, we first have to learn how to maintain our own coherence.
Right.
Then how do we create group coherence within our families, within our classrooms, within society? Really our current work. And then I think what you were asking me about or alluding to in the beginning is the global interconnectivity work.
Yeah.
So that we've been doing that project. It's called the Global Coherence Initiative.
Right.
Excuse me, for about 10, 12 years, something like that. And as part of that, we've installed a global system of very sensitive, ultra-sensitive magnetometers that measure the magnetic fields of Earth. And the reason for that, we had to do this ourselves because there are many magnetometers out there, but they don't measure what we measure, which are what are called the time varying or the moving magnetic fields, the resonant frequencies. And as it turns out, the rhythms of Earth overlap exactly the rhythms of the human heart and brain.
Wow.
It's kind of amazing.
Yeah.
To think of that. So what we're in our recent publications and studies showing that we are far more in sync with Earth, the rhythms of Earth, and each other because we're in sync with Earth than we ever would have thought possible or imagined. So I hear people all the time saying, well, on some level, we're all connected.
Right.
And so what we're showing here is, no, we really are connected at a very deep, fundamental physiological level. Not that that's the only way we're interconnected, but it's certainly one that we're able to measure and see the effects of.
Yeah. Through the way that we're connected, through the magnetic energy of the Earth and all of our cells, would that help explain distance healing?
I think it can. I think it helps explain a lot of things. Distance healing, also a lot of what we would call non-local intuition. I do a lot of lectures around the world, and you ask how many of you are mothers, right? And they say, okay, how many of you, the mothers in the room, have had an intuitive insight when your kids were up to something they shouldn't be, or were in harm's way, and they could be on the other side of the planet. Every hand in the room goes up.
Yep.
And then you got a lot of the kids versus younger people saying, yeah, I'm on the other side of that. They always seem to know.
Yeah.
So there has to be a mechanism for that. And one of our hypotheses in the global coherence work is that we are all connected literally to the Earth's magnetic field. Now, to back up and maybe connect a couple of dots for listeners there. Well, first of all, it's kind of going back to the personal coherence work, is that the human heart sends far more information to the brain than the other way around.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, now that may sound like a new discovery, right? It's not. That's been known since the late 1800s. It's basic anatomy.
Most people only understand the brain sending messages to the heart, and not the heart sending messages to the brain or the rest of the body.
Right. So, well, the heart's the dominant player here. And not only does it, well, if we take the vagus nerves, for example, which are the primary nerves of one of the main branches of our autonomic nervous system, the parasympathetic system, there's two very large nerves that come down through the front of the body, the vagus nerves. Well, 90%, and these are very big nerves. There's thousands of nerve fibers in each one of the two vagus nerves. 90% of those neural fibers are carrying information from the body to the brain. Not only 10% is brain down, 90%.
Wow, 90%.
90%. And of that 90%, the vast majority are coming from the heart and cardiovascular system.
Wow.
The heart and brain are more interconnected than any other systems in our body by far. So then not only that, and this goes back to the 70s, a lot of work, I won't go into all the history here because we don't have time, but it was observed that I'll just call it the quality of the neural signals being sent from the heart have profound effects on brain function. And literally are modulating our perception of the world and have a lot to do with creating our emotional experience, how we actually feel. But I think explains a lot of natural things in our language. Like hopefully when you fell in love with your wife, I assume you're married, you didn't say, I love you with all my head, right? Right. We instinctively, intuitively know if there's something more about the heart than just being a pump.
Yeah.
And again, this is a whole interview we could do just on this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, or all the sayings in our language, you know, just ask your heart. It always knows the answer,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or play from your heart, or put your heart into it. There's reasons that this is natural in our language. That people instinctively know that there's something about the heart that has to do with, as of course, it's the main, or the one central common denominator in all the great world's religions and philosophies is the heart is the access point to a deeper part of ourselves. You know, the wisdom, the higher capacities, and so on. But anyway, so that's one thing. But the heart also, when it beats, generates a measurable magnetic field, which we could call a biofield or whatever here. And this is a literal magnetic field. So I'm not talking about necessarily an aura here, which is probably more photonic that we can't really measure yet. So when you go to the doctor's office, you put electrodes across the chest to measure the electrocardiogram. It's called the electrocardiogram for a reason. We're measuring electricity, right?
Right.
And the heart's by far the largest source of rhythmic electricity in the body. You can measure the heartbeat anywhere in the body. You can put an electrode on your toe and measure the heartbeat, your head, anywhere. So basic physics tells us that we know whenever you have a flow of current, an electrical current, you create a magnetic field. So that the electrodes don't measure the magnetic field, they measure current flow. But to measure the magnetic field produced by the heart, we use a device called a magnetometer. And these, with today's instruments, magnetometers, you can measure the heart field about 3 feet from the body.
Wow.
You can measure the same instrument, you can measure a brainwave about 1 inch away outside the body.
Okay.
So clearly the heart's the big player when we're talking the energetics of the system. And I used to be, my previous career I was a communication engineer. I used to work for Motorola. And using almost the same kind of techniques we would use then to demodulate or look at the information being carried by a magnetic field, like our cell phones do, right? That's how our voice and text messages get from the phone to the cell tower. They're being carried by a magnetic field. And magnetic fields go through things.
Right.
My cell phones work indoors. Right. So if people don't believe me, well, quit using your cell phone because, right.
Yeah.
No, so the magnetic field easily penetrates through the skin and radiates external to the body. And we can now measure, and this is all published in peer-reviewed papers, that the information being carried by the field directly correlates back to our emotional state. So the magnetic field clearly is carrying emotional state information. Know that. Probably much more, but for sure emotional states. And then the next round of experiments, this is all back in the 90s still, right? So what, you could ask? Well, our nervous systems are exquisitely tuned to other biologically generated magnetic fields. So not only are we radiating these patterns and this information, but our nervous systems are able to detect and respond to the fields of other people. So there's always this energetic communication that's going on. Another reason we want to be personally coherent, right? Because our field does affect others in measurable ways. So when we're able to be in a heart coherent state, and again, many studies have shown this, that can actually have a lifting effect on others, where they become more coherent, even if they don't know what you're doing.
Right.
Right. But it works both ways. If you come in and you're all pissed off and anxious and stuff, those fields also have effects on others, but not in a positive way.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
So next step, then I wanted to give that background, Robin, because what we're suggesting is that our magnetic fields also couple and connect with the magnetic fields of Earth. So that that's a giant biofeedback system. Right. That we're all literally connected with the magnetic fields of Earth. So it's like the carrier wave. I use the cell phone analogy of how the cell phone carries my information, my voice or text. I'm just saying that Earth works the same way. It's a giant carrier wave that we're all connected to.
Yeah. And so with being able to measure and identify all these different forms of energy and the connectedness, how do we use those energies in health and happiness and quality of life? Which is what you teach at the HeartMath Institute.
Yeah, I mean, it starts again. That's an excellent question, and that's what really the basic HeartMath research is about: is how do we personally become more attuned to our own emotions, more self-aware.
Mm-hmm.
But then that's step one, right? We can become more mindful, is a term that's used a lot, or self-aware, I like, of what we're actually feeling. And for a lot of people, that's half the battle. Because where a lot of us, especially men, I think, are in denial. And we can actually, there's some fun ways of proving this, but we literally only perceive what we pay attention to.
Right.
So a lot of the emotional world goes on under the radar.
Mm-hmm.
And even if they're under the radar, if they're anxiety, overwhelmed, frustrated type quality feelings, they're still putting our nervous system into a state of chaos and driving the physiology in a way that basically rapidly increases the aging process. And over time, leads to many health problems. So, I mean, there's so many ways that in terms of our own personal health that it just makes sense. It's our own intelligence to start really becoming more aware of and managing our emotional diet.
Right.
I would say our emotional diet has, not to say that it's not important to pay attention to what we eat, and exercise. Of course, those are important to take care of the physical body on that level. But our emotional diet has far more impact on our health than what we necessarily eat.
Mm-hmm.
From my perspective, what the research shows. So it's kind of the next dimension of really health and healing is
right.
how to manage our emotions. So that's at the personal level. But then I'm also saying we also have to take that next leap, if you will, in personal coherence to increase social harmony.
Mm-hmm.
And move past the separations that we see in the world now and the polarization. And I look at humanity kind of like I would with the body. We've got all the 100 trillion cells in the body or more, right? That all have to work together in harmony for us to have a living, healthy system. Well,
right.
The way humanity is the same way, if you look at it, that we're all cells in a greater wholeness, right? But right now, I think just watch the news. There's a lot of lack of alignment, right? And a lot of problems that we face now until we can really jump into that next level of consciousness where we can really have social harmony and social coherence.
Right. And what are tools that you're using? I mean, other than the work at the HeartMath Institute to promote that kind of a thing, are there specific things that you guys are teaching or doing to promote better social coherence?
Oh yes, I mean, and of course, we have. In fact, next week we have another certification program and a program called Activating the Heart of Teens. So it's really, even in those programs, though, we always have to start with teaching some personal self-regulation. But then that moves into how do we get past our own biases and histories and these types of things that really create the separation, even within a team of people that work together. I mean, you can work with people and say, I'll tolerate you and work with you, but I don't really want to hang out with you.
Right.
So that even those separations are meaningful if we really want to have a high-performing team.
Yeah. Okay.
And so we're actually able now to measure. In fact, we have a new app that we've just came out that measures group-level coherence, and are doing a lot of work on synchronization. And as it turns out, it's really, really fascinating. People who are, I'll say, in a positive relationship, that have the positive emotional connections, that it's, again, I would never have expected this, but we're seeing that their heart rhythms can literally synchronize.
Wow.
Even at a distance. But again, it's the emotional relationships that really drive this.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same thing in terms of Earth. So I probably ought to circle back to that because that's sounding pretty wide. I could sound like but I need to get a little earth ball or something here to have. So if we just imagine my fist here is Earth, we have the geomagnetic field. Right? Most people know what that is, the field lines that go out the North and South Pole. And the geomagnetic field is a pure magnetic field. It's a static or stationary field for the most part. I mean, and so it's what our compass is tuned into, right? I mean, the geomagnetic field. And if we time travel back to when we were in school, in science class, most people got to dump iron filings on a glass plate.
Mm-hmm.
You put a magnet under it.
There you go. Yep.
You know, and whatever the shape magnet is, those iron filings line up and show you the shape of the field,
Mm-hmm.
right? Remember that? But if you recall, those iron filings lined up in little lines. It wasn't just homogeneous black blob, right? They're in lines.
Right.
And those are called magnetic field lines. They're real things, as we can visualize with the iron filings. So the magnetic field of Earth is the same way. Now, what's really fascinating about magnetic fields is those field lines literally act like guitar strings. And you can pluck them and they vibrate just like a guitar string.
Okay.
Okay. And if you change the tension or the length, you change the frequency or the note. Okay. Well, one of the primary notes or frequencies of the magnetic field lines of Earth, by the way, what's plucking the field lines of Earth is the solar wind rushing by.
Okay.
Right? You have Earth turning and the solar wind rushing by at 1,000,000 miles per hour, vibrating the strings. Well, one of the primary resonant frequencies of Earth's field lines is a frequency called 0.1 hertz.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's a one cycle every 10 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly the same frequency as the human heart rhythm when we're in a coherent state.
Wow.
Exactly the same frequency.
Wow. Yeah.
All right, so you get what I'm saying there? So when we're in a loving, kind, appreciative state, we naturally go into our own personal coherence, which is the same frequency as the magnetic fields of vibrating of Earth.
Wow.
We know back to science class, most people also got to play with tuning forks or have heard about that, know about resonance.
Mm-hmm.
So what that's demonstrating is really technically called resonant coupling, showing that when two systems vibrate at the same frequency, you can transfer energy and information between them.
Nice.
Now with tuning forks, you got air molecules that mediate that energy, but it works exactly the same way with magnetic fields, only you don't need the air molecules.
Wow. Love that.
So again, cell phone analogies. We got around you right now, Robin or me here in my office, if you think about it, how many invisible magnetic waves are right around us now with all the cell phone conversations, radio stations, stations going on. So how does our cell phone know what frequency, how does it get the information it wants to make your call? Mm-hmm. Right? We literally tune the frequency of the receiver and the transmitter in the cell phone to be resonant with the frequency of interest.
Wow.
And as soon as we do, voila, we transfer the energy and information through these invisible magnetic fields into our phone and have our conversation. Mm-hmm. It's exactly how they work.
Okay.
So what I'm saying here is that, we know that the big fields of Earth, it's called field line resonances is the technical term for this. The field lines vibrating. It's the same as our heart. Then there's another set of magnetic waves. It's a completely different mechanism and source. And these are magnetic waves that are traveling around the surface of the Earth, between the bottom of the Earth and the bottom of what's called the ionosphere. Mm-hmm. So the ionosphere, if you're not familiar with that, you could think of as a big soap bubble around the planet. Mm-hmm. Both the magnetic field and the ionosphere are critical for life on Earth as we know it. Right? It's protected. But the bottom of the ionosphere is like a mirror to magnetic waves. Okay. So these waves, these are called Schumann resonances. Mm-hmm. Some people have heard of these. There's 8 of them, but these are frequencies that are resonant. They fit within that size of that cavity. And you can kind of think of it like most people have seen the analogy of you drop pebbles in a pond. Mm-hmm. Drop them in at the right rhythm, the waves add and become big standing waves. Yeah. And if you are incoherent, drop them in at erratic times, the waves interfere and cancel each other out. It works the same way with Schumann resonances. Right. So those that fit in the cavity harmonically become these globally propagating standing waves, or everywhere all the time. So those 8 Schumann resonances overlap exactly with our brain waves. Wow. So the first one is 7.83 hertz, which is the same as basically alpha. Okay. And then they go up from there across all of our brain waves. So basically, what I'm saying here is our hearts and brains are operating at the same frequencies as Earth's magnetic or vibratory systems.
That is amazing.
Yeah. So kind of, it's not a big leap to understand through the resonance principle how we could all be coupling and connected with
Right.
the magnetic fields.
Love that. So while you're talking about that, I'm thinking, are these energy fields being affected by climate change?
Not the field line resonances wouldn't be so much because that's the magnetic field. Schumann resonances to a slight degree, the amplitude of them would be, but
Okay.
but that's a different topic.
Yeah. Okay.
Probably not as important as what we're talking about.
Right. Okay. Thanks. I appreciate that. Unfortunately, we're running out of time already.
Wow.
So fast, but I want to ask you a question that I'm asking all the experts, and that is, what do you think is the greatest factor in our ability to heal ourselves?
Well, learning to manage our emotions. Overall, I would say, because but there was so much we didn't have time to get into, but as we learn to appreciate more, love more, be kinder, that takes us into a coherent state personally. And we didn't talk near enough about coherence at the personal level and its relevance to our own health and healing. So there's over 400 studies, independently published studies now, that show that learning how to maintain our own personal coherence has a large variety of benefits for us. Slows the aging process, helps the body's natural regenerative processes. I mean, the body knows how to heal itself.
Right.
We can get the stuff out of the way. Of course, there are other. I'm not trying to make this sound like too simple here, but at the same time, if 90% of doctors visits are due to stress-related disorders, right, or stress-related issues, and all stress, practically speaking, is emotional dysregulation, there's kind of your answer in a way.
Right.
But I would expand that to say that it's not just our own personal healing and health, but also society. It all matters because in fact, my call to action here, if I could, or invitation, would be to really ask the listeners to maybe take a pause throughout the day, do an inner check. We call it spot check, right? Do an inner check and ask yourself, what am I feeding the field?
Yeah.
My own personal field and that's affecting others and the larger world, planetary fields. What's the ratio today? What I'm feeding the field? How much of it really is compassion, kindness, gratitude, love, versus maybe frustration or anxiety or impatience that I didn't get my to-do list done enough as we navigate through the day.
Right.
So that heals us and society and even the planetary system.
Love that. That is beautiful. Thank you. Wow. Well, thank you for being here. I would like for us to do another longer interview and go in depth more about the healing.
I'm happy to.
Okay. Well, thank you for being here and sharing your knowledge and your experience is just amazing. And I want to tell viewers that Dr. McCraty is offering the free gift of an ebook titled Science of the Heart. And you can access that on the link on the video here. You'll also get an email linked to the book. And you can also go directly, if you want more information about Dr. McCraty, his workshops, his certifications, the trainings, to heartmath.org. And there's also a link to access the ebook there. And is there anything you want to say about the Science of the Heart?
Well, Science of the Heart, that's one of a number of books. Science of the Heart is when it's obviously about science. It's not over heavily. I mean, it's about written at kind of a scientific American level to help people understand, but it really has many chapters. It has chapters on intuition.
Oh, nice.
Intuition, for example, chapters on our work in schools or corporations and law enforcement. A lot of basics of how the heart and brain communicate. There's a chapter on that. Chapter on heart rate variability. So it's a pretty good scientific overview of a lot of the science work. A chapter on global coherence. If they want to learn more of the tools and techniques that I was talking about, I would recommend a book called Heart Intelligence.
Okay.
most
Nice.
book. But we have many books.
Yeah, there are so many. So you can access Dr. McCraty and his work at heartmath.org. And again, I thank you very much for being here. And this is Dr. Robin Futoran, thanking you for joining us on the Unleash Your Inner Healer for this final episode of Unleash Your Inner Healer. So Dr. Robin Futoran, Dr. McCraty, thank you. And so long for now.
Take care.